us some good feedback at the end. We'll be passing out those evaluation sheets. So make sure you let us know exactly what you may be interested in, or if there's something more that you'd want to hear about, and then we can make sure that we take care of that the next time. Out in the hallway when you came in, you saw some of Donna's books were for sale. So during some of the breaks, make sure you get out there and check them out and buy some if you can. And some of the proceeds will go to the Hope Project, correct? Which is an organization that Jeff's here that fights human trafficking. So, yeah, if you do, check it out during the breaks, and we will get started right now. Okay? Let's open up in prayer, and then we will turn it over to Donna. Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for what you're doing in this house. Thank you for what you're doing amongst the people. And Lord, we just ask for just a time of
There's the little neuron. I was doing some, like, oh, is this cool? Whoops, my thing over here. Can you still hear me? Okay. What they're saying is that these are so tiny that if you put a hair next to it, it'd be like having 6 foot difference. That's how tiny the neuron is. And I was trying to find one that was active. They have active ones on. I could put it in here, and I couldn't find one that I could. Well, my gray hair shows in times like this, too. I am not that good in technology, and I've got to get someone to find me an active one that shows them firing. But they're always moving, they're always firing, and they're always active, processing what's happening to us, processing what's going on. And it's very important that we take care of that brain. Okay, we take care of it. I know a lot of people who look at our addictions. That little tiny thing needs everything we can do to help it to grow. Okay. There's another picture of the neuron. Didn't quite, yeah, and another one. Go back one. Those are trees of the neurons, what they call trees. And they're all firing inside of us all the time. Now, we put something in there like, my body doesn't like coffee, caffeine. I like having it. Yeah, it's kind of nice, but my body doesn't. So if I put it in there, I'm messing me up, and I'm messing my brain up. So we have to say, what do I need to stay healthy? And if I've been traumatized, literally there'll be parts of that area will be dark because the neurons have been not functioning or they've been damaged. If there's been drugs addiction or that kind of thing, or alcohol. I've got to say this because I'm an alcohol freak in this area. Alcohol is one of the most dangerous drugs we have out there, guys. It kills these things. It damages to the point where it'll kill them. So people end up with brain damage. And sometimes they get it so much and so bad towards the end of like the 3rd stage of alcoholism that they can no longer make decisions. So if we just look at the fact of how this incredible thing that God's created has been damaged, it's like, whoa. But we also have God in there saying, but they can grow new ones. Who knows? Who knows what we can do? Yeah. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That's how I got there.
What I'm thinking is, like, I think that everybody that experiences trauma has something, because some of us cross the line into addiction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But everybody needs something.
Keep going.
And other of us pick up a substance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Substances, and they work. Addictions are repeated behavior that help us cope with pain that cause chemical reactions. That can be anything. I can pet my dog, which is a big guy, yeah, and go, oh, yeah, this feels good. That's a chemical change in me. I can go up to an animal, donkey, or horse, and that will happen. Any kind. Or we humans get addicted to anything. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Yes. Something. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. 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 One vet I worked with, he put himself in the basement, and he blocked all the windows, and he literally sat at the basement of stairs with a rifle in his hand, watched the top of the stairs. That's all he could do. And it was like, whew, that's trauma. And that was trying to survive. That was trying to survive. Trying to keep going.
Is there any chance of recovery? I mean, is that ever healed?
Yeah.
When there's brain damage, is there any chance of that?
God's always in there, and he's saying our brain, we can create new neurons. what neurologists are saying is that there are some areas, they can even tell which area has been done by a drug and which area maybe is a learning disability or something like that. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. But that's a God thing again. How far can we go? Who knows? I like to think all the way. Okay, this is the tree area. This is all the neurons firing. So eventually I'll find one that actually is an active one. Okay. Okay, see the little bits and pieces? That's the epigenetics sticking on our genes. Isn't that amazing? They actually are sticking. There actually is a chemical that's stuck on our genes and affects, and that is holding the memories that our parents, grandparents, those kind of people went through. Whew. Yeah, they've actually documented and can show it that way. So it says that we have got to heal and do everything possible to heal, period. And not stop till God says we're done. Okay. Okay, let's kind of take a look at what the next thing is. Yeah. I couldn't resist these guys. I couldn't. They're so cool. They are so cool. Okay, next one. Go ahead. Yeah. Like the man down at the bottom of the stairs with his rifle. Says, I've gotcha. I've gotcha. Okay, we're going to stop here and kind of open up for discussion. And what kind of things do you want to know about trauma? What do you want to know? Yeah.
We're back here discussing epigenetics and is holding the memory of generations. What can we do to start healing that? Or is that
You mean the epigenetics? I believe that God has it all together as we heal. Because the effects of it, it's like, my mother was very afraid that we were going to be handicapped. So I ended up growing up thinking I'm going to be fear of being handicapped, crippled in a wheelchair. And I kept saying, finally got to the point of saying, hold it. This is, I had to think about it and really process it, going, this isn't mine. This isn't mine. Yeah, and then to feel that, whatever feeling I had to have, but once I realized it wasn't mine, it kind of went away. What do you, it's happened to you? Has that happened to you too? Okay. Is that fit for what you're asking? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, if it doesn't belong to us. That doesn't mean we won't have the fear of it. But we have to figure out that we have to feel the feelings of the fear. Which is actually, fear is not one of the easier ones to release, surprisingly. Yeah. Yeah.
So along with that, so what is the best way to release it if it doesn't belong to us?
That depends on what it is.
What would be the process?
Process is one to sit down and figure out, is this mine? And then are there feelings connected? Did it affect me so that I have feelings that I have to feel with it? It's always going to go back to feeling the feelings and dealing with them.
So those feelings that are connected.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you find that talking to a pastor, talking to you, talking to a counselor, talking to a
Where you at, right here? Okay.
Donna, how important do you think, as a person's healing, you know, of course, emotionally, then they're going to start to realize, like, their body, you know, and things health-wise that they're dealing with, and they're going to become more aware. Do you know anything about lecithin and the brain, and do you think that it really makes a difference? When a person is emotionally damaged, probably their body's going to be in a bad state as well. And so as they begin to heal, of course, they're going to start to realize, and they're going to focus more on getting their body healed too, right? I mean, it's part of the process. When we were just discussing lecithin and the brain and healing power of it. Do you think that it really makes a difference when you're talking about healing the neurons?
The neurons and what we do,
Yeah.
and everything we do to heal. Is that what you're talking about? Somehow I'm missing something.
Well, lecithin is a supplement you can purchase.
Say it again.
Lecithin is a supplement you can purchase.
Oh, okay.
It comes like in a 1-pound can. I've always been told it's a great brain food,
Okay.
and I was wondering if you had an opinion regarding that, if it's a really good brain food to regenerate your brain.
So like, what do we need to do to heal? Is that what we're talking about? Can we get supplements, those kinds of things? Okay.
Specifically,
That particular supplement I was wondering about, lecithin, if you had any experience with it maybe, or?
Yeah, I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't
Okay.
speak to all of that. I can tell you that following God, He gets you to what you need to get to. We do need to eat healthy. We do need supplements. One of the things I found after I worked with, I came up with a farm program, nonprofit farm program, and I found out I had Lyme disease, mold, what else did I have? Something else, the list went on. So I had to do supplements, I had to do whatever it took to get the body back. And we do have to do that. You know, and God leads us to whatever that is. I can't speak to a certain supplement, what it would be for you. Yeah.
so that might be unique to each individual, and seeking God to find out if that's
Yes,
an answer for you.
a really good doctor. I had to get to a holistic doctor.
Donna, where does,
Turn it on.
you said that the spirit is affected? Okay.
It turned off. That's weird. Was it back on? Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't think I touched it. Okay.
In the case of abuse, when the person that's been abused approaches the person that's abused them and forgives them and restores the relationship, how does that affect the brain?
That's amazing. Yeah. Forgiveness is everything. Forgiveness is everything. It does affect the brain. It affects our emotions. It affects our healing spiritually. We cannot heal without forgiving.
So could that turn things totally around?
Not by itself. I can't say that. God knows whether that can turn around totally for that person. I've seen people heal like boom, and it's like, oh wow, is that cool? You know, most of the time I see them us having to do the healing process. And as we go through the process and we heal and we forgive here, then I heal a little bit more and I have to forgive a little bit more because I learned a little bit more. And so it's a process that goes along with the healing. We have to forgive. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I'm just kind of on the thought of like the memory part of it. So what if they're going through all these emotions of trauma, but they can't remember the event of the trauma? How would you work through that?
That's a challenge. They're in memory block, right? That's what you're
Yeah.
saying. The memories are in memory block. One, to make sure they don't decide that something has happened to them. I had one client a number of years ago that had a healing person in their lives and told her that she had been sexually abused by her father. Well, she never got the memory. And I said, until you have the memory, it's not yours. But she went on to all the emotions and all the, if it's not hers, she can't heal it. We have to get into there and say, what does it take for me to do the healing? Say your question again. I want to make sure I get all the parts to it.
What if, like, they're going through, they realize that there's trauma and they're getting treated for emotionally,
Right.
but let's say the event did happen, if they were, but the brain shut it out because it's too painful for them to remember. How do you
Yes.
work through that? Like, how do they get treatment if they can't even remember the event?
That's the bottom line is we feel our feelings fully, and as we do, the memories will come, if it's theirs. And the reason I said about the being told that those are called false memories, you don't mess with them because they mess with us. They really aren't healthy. But if they're my memories and they're in memory block, and mine were in memory block for a lot of years. And as I healed, it's like, oh my goodness, that happened to, whoa, what else happened? Jeez. Yeah, it will happen.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're going to be doing the healing process with the feelings, get the help you need. Please, people, get the help you need. People are surprised sometimes. I told someone that because of I went through a very difficult time through a nonprofit I was connected to, and I put myself in counseling. I said, you needed counseling? I said, yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
On your list you gave of what trauma looks like, you had depression, anxiety, addictions, lack of control. Can trauma show with just one of those symptoms, or is it more of a compounded thing? Because I know people who have like ADD that have no signs of trauma. So I kind of wondered if there has to be like a list involved to have trauma or not, or can it just be one symptom at a time?
It can be one symptom, depending on the person. And ADD is often a symptom of trauma. Yeah, ADD is a real interesting little character, is that it can come from allergies, it can come from a brain damage, it can come from being inherited, it can come from trauma. Yeah. But it depends on the person, if they're sad or they're depressed or they have ADD, but if it's just ADD and it's in the family, then we pretty much know where it's coming from. Yeah.
So I guess I'm kind of questioning along with this young lady here, if they don't remember. As a parent, my son was diagnosed with ADHD at around 11. He wanted to kill himself at that age because he couldn't focus in school. Yeah. And so I got him help, and he wouldn't talk about any, like, you know, he denies to this day that anything traumatic happened to him. He lost someone that at 6 years old, my fiance passed, so you know, he didn't. I just figured he didn't know how to deal with that, but he displays a lot of bipolar characteristics, the anxiety, depression. I mean, all of those things, and he's just struggled ever since.
Wow.
So when you recognize these things, how do you help them if they don't think they need help?
Yeah.
How do you get them to the point of realization that there's something wrong?
How old is he now?
21.
21 now, okay.
Yeah.
One, prayer. Lots and lots of prayer. You can get other people praying for him. And two, you can tell them that when you're ready to deal with this what's happened to you, all your feelings, then please let me know and get you some help. I know you're hurting. I'm hurting with you. Get the help you need. And that's all we can do. And to wait for them to get to there. What's interesting is that
I think your mic did that again. I can't hear yourself.
I didn't touch it.
Maybe the battery.
That back? Mine's back. Okay. Don't move. Yeah. Okay. The hard part is when we love them so much, we want to get them help and hear and see that they're hurting. It usually takes them to about 30. Usually takes to about age 30-ish before they realize that I can't do my life. We're going on with like 20s, like the teens, if we've been through a tough time, we're going to be surviving. Then we hit 20s, I'm going to make my life good. I can do this. Look out, world, I can do this. And then we realize at the end of 20, it's like, oh, this isn't going really well. This isn't happening really well. And so usually by 30s, the world will be crashing a little bit. And they will come, that's the most common age to come in, is the 30s. I've had 80 or 90-year-olds come in, they're a blessing to work with. Really a blessing.
So as a parent, just praying into it and being available, and I'm just kind of trying to summarize an answer to that. If you see the effects of trauma and those kind of behavioral tellers, you know, that you talked about, but not really understanding where the root is, that's what you would have, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
With what she was saying, it reminded me of myself with, and then you said about 30. Does that have anything to do with like the frontal lobe, finally realizing that making better decisions for yourself? But I ended up with cognitive behavior therapy, which didn't make sense to me at first because I didn't know how to, with my emotional problems and decision-making problems and trauma and all that. The cognitive therapy helped me get through how to do the emotive processing and how to separate reality from non-reality, but it almost felt like it took until about my late 20s, 30s, and there was like a change in my brain to where I could receive it better, maybe.
Okay, okay. Neat. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that definitely could be, because the brain is growing to at least 25, they say. Isn't that amazing? Whew. Yeah.
In my experience, getting back to the generational curses prayers.
Oh, there you are, okay.
The generational curses, there are prayers to break those for those who believe, and I've seen great success with walking people through the generational curses prayer and breaking that.
Yes.
So there are prayers specifically for that.
Absolutely, yeah.
What does everybody think of curses? Think they exist?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Because if we look at curses and we look at the epigenetics,
Genetics, yeah.
we've got the connection. Yeah.
For the lady up front who was talking about her son, grief is also a part of trauma. There's a lot of people who are traumatized from grief, deaths of loved ones, feeling like they've lost themselves, don't know themselves, so on and so forth. And also the medication. There's, you know, as you probably know, there's side effects from medication. So that may have caused some symptoms as well.
Yeah, and I think we need to take a look at those side effects too. I just came off a medication that was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. And we may need the medication, but may not be the right one. And it can cause the emotional stuff and the nervousness and all kinds of stuff. Absolutely.
Hey, Donna, I'm not exactly sure how to frame this question. First of all, I totally understand that thing about not remembering, because I don't remember what I had for breakfast most days later in the day.
Okay.
I have huge gaps in my memory. I tell people that I don't really have a memory of my childhood. I see snapshots.
Oh wow.
But I don't have a memory of my childhood. So it's hard for me to know. I've come to the conclusion that I was raised in a dysfunctional home, but I guess I'm also wondering, we haven't used the word dreams. Are dreams a way to access the memories I don't have? you know what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. Yeah, should we talk about dreams a little bit? And this keeps turning out, guys.
Yeah, I'm getting a handheld coming right now.
Oh, okay.
We'll use this one for a minute until he gets down.
Okay. All right. Now you can hear me. Okay, dreams are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. God has different dreams coming into. One is a vision, and he still does give visions. Two is precognitive, future kind of thing. And the third one is we are trying to resolve what is going on. Like that. We're trying to resolve what is going on that's not resolved during the day. And our brain will work. Remember the homeostasis we talked about? Okay. The homeostasis is saying, I need to get this geared. I need to get this smoothed out. I need to fix this. I need to fix it, and I can't fix it. So we need to pay attention to those dreams. They're huge. They're absolutely huge. Sounds like you have some specific dreams that come? Okay. Yeah, and to pay attention to them and get someone that can do the dream work, to work with you with that, to interpret it. Because often they're symbolic. They're often very symbolic. One person described she said she was in this garden, or coming out of a house, going into a garden, and she saw this big, beautiful bush, but it was frozen. It was absolutely frozen. It didn't move. It had roses on it, but just frozen. And as she went, she described the dream. She says, I think we know what's happening in the dream. I said, well, tell me what. She says, because as I approached it and got to know it, it started moving and started coming alive. And she says, that was me. That was me. As she was going through her healing, yeah, she got to saying, she could identify herself with that. And dreams often have like parts of the dreams that may be important to us. Each part will have something to do with our life. Like if I am a train, I can say, okay, am I the engine? If I was the engine, what would that be? Well, I'm charging through life. Or if I'm the track, people are running over me. Those kinds of things, and take a look at each part of the dream, because they're very important and they're very symbolic. Okay.
I actually have a response to what you were saying. Over the past year, I've gone through like counseling and stuff like that, and a lot of the situations that I couldn't open up in person about, I dreamed about, and I was able to resolve them because I knew emotionally and during the day I couldn't handle that. So God was able to let me work through that in my dreams and just get it out in the open. And I always had like the most amazing healing from those and in my past, in my memories, because there's times like I wouldn't have been able to process it correctly if it was during the day and every lie thrown at you when you're awake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Thank you. Should we talk about grief? Just what you wanted to talk about, right? No. Okay. When we heal, we have got to grieve everything that happened to us and everything that didn't happen to us. Really, really, really important. Everybody says, oh, grief, yuck. But grief brings all these treasures with it, too. Our feelings give us treasures that are amazing. And grief says, something's wrong, something hurt me, I've lost something. I've lost something. And I have to feel that. And I have to feel it at the intensity that it's at. And some people say, I don't understand. I said, well, sometimes the feelings were so bad I thought I was going to die in them, or that they were gut-wrenching. Anybody had feelings like that? Okay. Means you've done some feeling work, right? Yeah, and that's where we have to get to release the intense feelings. There's no way we can get around that. We have to feel our feelings fully. And one time, was it Kubler-Ross that said there's all these stages of grief? Said you go through one stage, another. We now know that they are not rigid stages anymore. What they are is that, yes, I'm going to have fear, I'm going to have anger, and one of the most surprising anger that we have in grief is that he died. Didn't he know I needed him? How dare he die? That is a powerful piece of the grief. Anger at, they died, they left me. They left me. How could they do that? Didn't they know how much I needed them? All my grandparents were dead by the time I was 7. Didn't they know I needed them? Except for the one that wasn't very nice. The one that could conjure evil. Like, no, that wasn't the one that lasted the longest, too. And like, life is life, right? But we've got to feel those feelings. And own the fact that, yeah, I miss them. I wish they were here. I needed them. And it's going to have fear. How do I go on with my life? How do I keep going? What do I keep doing? How can I do this? How can I do this? When when we did the farm program, it's a nonprofit for lots of people and doing the equine therapy and helping people heal. And we're doing great, and there's this really neat soul sister I had named Betsy. And we finally, after years of looking for the right farm, found the farm. We moved into May. She died in August. God, can we talk? You know, how in the world do you want me to keep going through this? How am I supposed to do this? And I was really alone on the farm, literally, because we had moved the farm into Newaygo County, and the people that were on the board didn't want to come to Newaygo County. So I said, okay, God, that's it. I'm out of here. We're on land contract. I can move. And called my son, who's a minister. And I said, Don, I think I'm going to come and live with you. You're in Minneapolis. I don't want the cold, but I don't have to stay here. I'm kind of done here. I'm going to close the farm up. And he said, Mom, I'm going, oh, here it comes. Yes, son. And he said, God doesn't call us to the easy. I went, oh. He doesn't remember telling me that. And like, I will never forget you telling me that. No, never. That was very direct from him to God. Was I supposed to continue the farm program? Yeah. No doubt it went on for a number of years after that. But the grief was so bad. I'm running. I'm going to get out of here. I'm not going to do this. I need to leave. Thank you very much. Enough's enough. And the fear is that how in the world, Lord, am I going to run a nonprofit? Now it has a counseling center, and now it has a working farm? And you want me to run this? Sure. But he got it through, and he got very good people involved. And it was really neat for a lot of years. Really neat. So we have the fear. How do I do my life without them? We have the sadness. I'm now having breakfast alone. Or I don't have my dad. I can call and say, hey, Dad, how are you doing? What's going on? Or can I run this by you, Dad? Or Mom? Or just go see them for holidays. Or whatever the grief is. When it is abuse and neglect, when it's trauma, a lot of the grief is, I wasn't safe. So what I got and I need to grieve is the fact that I was abused, neglected, scapegoated, whatever it was, whatever the trauma was. So I have to feel that. I have to feel that. All of it. And sometimes thank you God, it comes up in what we call slime balls, chunks. We don't have to feel every little bit that ever happened to us all through our life. And healing doesn't take it takes, I would give yourself at least 2 years in therapy if you're going to do intense work. Okay? People say, oh. I said, but you were abused a lot longer than that. 2 years is nothing. You already survived all those years. So we have to grieve everything that happened to us. Can't get around that. Because it keeps our body tensed up. Question?
What would be a healthy way to do that when, like you said, those slime balls come up maybe when you're alone or, not with a counselor or whatever? What's a healthy way to kind of feel that when you're not, with another safe or healthy person and it's just you? How do you navigate that? You feel it. You've got it. Is that what you're saying? You would feel it. I mean, that's what comes up if it's just the feelings.
And it keeps
what's
coming.
The process, a healthy process to kind of, a thought process to do it in a healthy way, not just a pity or really, just,
okay.
Does that make sense?
To feel the feelings, you mean how to do it and without hurting yourself? Is that what you're saying?
In just a way that can be healing instead of just still hurting.
Okay. The only way to do it is to feel the feelings fully. There really is the only way to do it. I wish there was another way. I really do. So I would have found it for me. I would have changed it. Yeah. So we've got what happened to us. We have to grieve that. And then we have to grieve what we didn't get. We didn't get safety. We did not get opportunities to develop us. Like if I could have been a great gymnast, and probably I couldn't have been, but if I could have been, the opportunity is gone. And all those opportunities to be cared about and loved and shared with and encouraged, and my abilities and my purpose helping it be developed is gone. It's gone. So that we grieve, the important thing is that we have got to feel the feelings fully and go on. So that releases in us. What we get back is wisdom, which is really cool, isn't it? How many people have struggled with grief in this life? Everybody, yeah. What are some of the ways that you've gotten through it? What have helped you? Let's do some sharing. Okay. Wait for the, yeah.
For me, it was art. Okay. I'm an artist, and it was just easier for me to process emotions by identifying color to them. So even if I couldn't, because I'm not very good with talking, so for me, I went to counseling, but for me to really feel those feelings, it was colors. So I was able to like release with movement, and I was able to release with just worship and that part of it, because even if I couldn't remember the process or I couldn't remember the event, emotions don't lie. And music and art are the truest form of that. You can't escape honesty with them. So for me, it was just that process of just going through and just painting and moving how I felt, even though if I couldn't communicate it.
Okay, neat. Wonderful. And the music and art is wonderfully healing. People say sometimes, well, how do I get to the feelings? I said, well, art will do it. A movie will do it. Sad book and music. Yeah.
I realized that I had to find things to be grateful for and focus on things that were good instead of, switch from everything that had been taken from me or that I missed to what I was grateful for. And then the process of forcing myself to learn who the Holy Spirit was and how to communicate with Him. And that caused me to understand that I didn't have to live in fear. And so it was those two things that, and I don't think that I could have found the Holy Spirit if I wasn't so intent on healing.
Yeah, the focus does need to be on healing. I'm choosing it. Yeah.
I found that when I was in that place and I was just stuck and couldn't get over those particular deaths, and I released it. I said, God, I can't do this. I don't know how to get over this. And He led me to some scriptures. And just going through that, but I was praying the scriptures. So I just prayed them, and He just, His word and His promise is true. So that was my way of getting over it, was through prayer.
Neat. Okay.
Excuse me. Personally, for years I dealt with the feelings of grief that I experienced from, some of the situations that I encountered by doing drugs and, kind of not letting myself experience the feelings fully, but other than giving it to God and the ability to talk to other people, develop relationships with people that kind of understood the way I felt, my testimony, my chances to kind of share the burden in a sense that I felt on myself had a big, a profound effect on letting myself deal with everything that happened completely and forgiving myself and starting the healing process. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned when we were talking about forgiveness, we didn't talk about is self-forgiveness. It's huge. It's huge. And one of the things for us to look at when we get to that point, everybody says, I can't forgive me. I've done such I'm a bad, terrible, horrible person. I can't do this. I can't go on. God will never forgive me. I have to punish myself for the rest of my life. Yeah, yeah. And what I share with people is that here is the God of the universe, our amazing Lord that loves us so much, created us, and He's forgiven us. Who am I? who am I not to? Like, whoa, yeah. Okay.
I forgot to add something that was really important, was that I had to realize that grief was trying to overtake me.
Mm-hmm.
I had
you have to feel the grief,
I had to
though.
recognize that.
Okay.
I'm like, wait a minute here.
Okay.
It's trying to take me somewhere I don't want to go.
Okay.
So that was really important.
Okay.
Key.
So then you could do the feeling work
Right.
with it.
Mm.
I hear you. I hear you.
I've found that having an accountability partner or being an accountability partner can help through the grieving process because it keeps
Okay.
thought processes and emotions in check, and that even expands past grief of a loss of a loved one or something like that. But like grieving your situation, I did my internship in Ionia Prison, and inmates there go through a grieving process of loss of family because they are there and they're not, that type of thing. And having a worship service where we could sit around and ask hard questions of each other really helps. And somebody, you were talking about building those relationships. That's huge, to have someone either understand what you're going through or being willing to understand what that person's going through. Helps
Yes.
with the grieving process.
Absolutely, I agree with you. There's someone that's been through it and go, I know where you are. I know what's happening. Thank you.
Well, Donna, I can tell you that what you have listed here in terms of the age and what things happen to us, I went through it in the 20s. I went all the wrong directions to try to deal with the pain. And then in my 30s, I realized that I was damaged and I needed to get help. And thank God, the church became a part of my life. And fellowship. And accountability, a place to go and to pour out your feelings and grieve,
Yes.
and have others come alongside of you and say, God's got this. You're
God's
going
got
to be
this, yeah.
okay. You're going to be okay. And then I poured myself into my family and found the gifts I had, but I slipped down by trying to be perfect. And then I found out that I can't be perfect, and I don't need to be perfect. That's the key thing. I don't need to be perfect, because none of us are, and none of us ever will be.
Yeah.
And that was a really good eye-opener for me. Worship was the biggest help. Learning to worship and to praise, because praise stills the enemy and the avenger. And I could put away all the lies that I was believing by praising God, getting in the Word all the time. That was a big help. Yep.
So the timing was right there for you. Yeah, I hear that.
Donna, you made a comment that was very powerful and impactful. You said sexual abuse is the only abuse that crosses over the spiritual line. Could you explain that?
The other abuses seem to stay, at least on this layer, this surface. So our bodies have a chance to keep it whatever. Spiritual or sexual abuse goes in, especially for the female and the male. It goes in. It's like it's so powerful that the spiritual part gets connected to it. And would you want to do some talking about the spiritual part at this point? Would that be helpful? Okay. How the spirit is damaged. Let's find where I have my notes here on this. Okay, here it is. Okay, spiritual abuse. Any abuse damages our relationship with God, damages our spirituality. And I'll share with you a little bit how that came to be for me. I was not sexually abused physically, but I was sexually abused because I was not okay as a female. So it got muddled in there. It got muddled in there. It damaged my relationship with God, even though I could tell you that from a little girl, a tiny little thing, I would demand that my parents take me to church. As a 5-year-old, they wouldn't go, but they'd take me. Now, how I knew there was God, people say, how'd you know? I said, I don't know, but that was always there for me. But I do know that as that journey continued, I knew that he was there for me, but no one was teaching about his love for me. And so I thought I had to be perfect. I had to be absolutely perfect, and we're talking about it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So, but as long as if I could be perfect and do everything right, and maybe I wouldn't get beat up that day. Or maybe I wouldn't be bullied or sibling abused or whatever was going on that day. Or maybe they would acknowledge me in some way. As long as my relationship also gets connected to, my mother's side is Greek. Love the Greeks. Some people say, what do you like about the Greeks? And I say, I like the food. My relationship, and I have some wonderful cousins. They're just absolutely marvelous. And I acknowledge their Greek, and they're wonderful people. But the Greeks that I grew up with in my home were not. My father was not Greek. That was a saving grace for me. So I'm growing up as a female, and Greeks do not acknowledge the female as anything else but for lack of a better word, slave. You are a female, you will pack for if you're going on vacation, you'll pack for your brothers, you'll do this, you'll do that, you'll clean, you'll cook, and that just didn't match me. It just didn't. So I had to be perfect. So if I was perfect, then maybe I get a little something back. Maybe not much, but I get something. And so there I am trying to be perfect, and God's there, but I know I'm not perfect. So I can't get connected to him. Not in a deep way. No one was teaching me. I didn't have a family that taught me. So it was like real confusing. So sexual abuse, any kind of abuse damages our relationship with God. It keeps us at a distance. We can't get close because he's going to judge me because I know I'm not perfect. I can't get close because I'm not doing the right things. Or he's going to be mad at me because look what I did. I just goofed. I just yelled or I screamed and yeah, we're going to be talking about anger this afternoon, and I was a door slammer. Still love slamming doors when I'm angry. We'll talk about why that is okay. Matter of fact, my father said, you slam that door one more time, I'm taking the door off the hook. Well, I did and he didn't, so we had an agreement. But it hurt because I couldn't get God in there. And as I got older, as I kept taking those steps, I still couldn't. Then I started judging me. Then it flips to I judge me. I become the observing self. Anybody have an observing self? The one this part that keeps an eye on you and making sure you do the right thing, you do this and you do that, and okay, yeah. Mine was a little troll in the back, and he was on a platform, he had a whip. You did it wrong, you didn't do it. And our brain gets going crazy because it's saying, I'm trying to figure this out, I'm trying to do it right, I'm trying to go ahead, and I can't. And so I'm not connected to God the way I need to be. So I don't have that power and that love in there that can get me there. So it keeps me, again, at a distance with God. What do you mean he loves me? No, it doesn't fit. It blocks the love. The abuse and the trauma blocks the love that can be there from God. Like Marie would tell you, she was always there with God. God was always there. How do you do that? And we would talk a lot about God. That's how we created the farm program together, because it was God-based. Well, one time she was telling me a memory, and some memories I won't ever share because I don't want anybody to have them in the brain like I do. But one was her parents had decided to get rid of her as an infant and put her, she even remembers this. How she remembers it, I don't know. But she was put in a shed, cold shed, and left to just die. And she says, what I knew, I said, what did you know? I knew God loved me. Whew, God loved you. Yeah, and I'm supposed to keep going. Isn't that amazing? And there was no question for her. And I said, I don't know how you got there, because I couldn't get there. And she says, well, maybe because I had some good things from my parents. And I said, like what? We're talking about satanic abuse. We're talking about, tell me the good stuff. And her father did teach her, and her mother taught her things. And by the way, her parents were the pillars in their church. Ouch, huh? Yeah, ouch is right. But the spirituality is so important. It's so important. Whatever that damage is, it gets connected to the Spirit. It gets connected to my relationship with God. Maybe some of you can relate to that. And the other thing I have to do is I have to protect myself. I'm not letting anybody get close to me. I already know that I'm not okay. So I'm not letting anybody close to me because I have to protect me. And if I let you close and you're going to judge me, thank you very much, I'm going the other direction. And that doesn't mean I didn't love God. I remember times I would go into church and I would think I'm the worst person ever existed. I must be horrible and I wasn't loved. I think they loved me in the best they could. I mean, that I at least could come to. But I would get into church and people would say, go to Sunday school. And I tried that once. I'm going, this isn't what I need. What I need to be in church, sitting, listening to the music. And my church had a big, huge cross that hung up, like way up. And I could just get lost in the cross. I could emotionally, so you can relate, yeah. I can get lost in the cross. I could absorb myself and my God, and we connected there. And I came out of church after doing that, and people say, did you ever listen to the sermons? And I said, what sermons? I have no idea. Didn't need that. But I would come out of church and I could take a deep breath and go, okay, I can do another week. And it was hard. Because if we've got this, I've got to defend myself. God's going to beat me up. God's already judged me. Everybody else has judged me. God's judged me. So why would I put myself in a relationship, get closer to Him? And it's a process to go through that. Even as I went through this last round of healing, which I love God. And I love the healing. We have different layers of healing. There's a kind of the beginning layer, and then there's a deeper layer. Well, I thought I'd done the deeper layer. Well, this one's even a deeper layer. And I wouldn't have given anything to, I loved what I got. Would I love to have done it a different way? Oh, yes, absolutely. But God's saying, come deeper. Matter of fact, Marion was part of that, beginning of that. I was coming off the farm stuff, and Regina kept saying, this is a pastor is now in Phoenix, Arizona, somewhere. And she says, you got to get time with Marion. Well, Marion's a psalmist. You've never had spent time with a psalmist, you got to. You just got to. And we walked into your office and you sat down, you put the music, and you were off, and like, whoa, what is this? And your words were, He was consummating me into a deeper relationship with Him. And I can still hear your beautiful words coming to me and say, you're going to go deeper and deeper. And going, whew. And yeah, that's exactly what it is. Psalmists are amazing, gifted people, and you are. So the journey has been amazing. Has it been hard? Yeah, because there's part of this, like, get deeper with God. My whole older being says, oh, you don't get close. You don't do that. You don't let yourself go there, because that's dangerous. My troll is still there, remember? My troll. Actually, I now grew daisies in that back area, and yeah, there's no more whip anymore. I decided I'd grow daisies. I love daisies. Yeah. But we have to be open to that and go through the pain and the fear that it takes to get through that. And it is so worth it. So worth it. And the other person that got me through a lot was Bev here. And does amazing work helping people heal through prayer. It's just amazing. I kept coming in, I'd say, okay, here's what we have to deal with. And you go, okay, what's what we're doing with? Okay. And it ended up being a life journey. And being God helped through with Bev, I can talk, this life journey that happened. I could see everything that had come together from where I began, not being wanted as a female. And my father beat me up at 3 months. I mean, it's one of those incredible stories that you just go, I'm not being like that. No way. It's not gonna beat me. But Bev helped me see this amazing journey from there to where I am now and how God has called me to do what I do. Do I wish there was another way? Oh, yeah. Do I wish there was no trauma? Yeah. Do I love helping people heal from trauma? Yeah. And helping them understand it and the impact that it's had, the huge impact on us. One of the things in trauma, too, that keeps us away from God is we learn that we're the only ones that we can rely on. Anybody understand that one? Yeah. I am the only one that I know I can trust. Trust God? Yeah, look what he's put me through. Why didn't he stop it? Why didn't he just, he could have stopped it. Why didn't he? And I look back and go, yeah, he could have. And even I know we're not supposed to have people read palms and heads, but I had a grandmother that was an okay grandmother. This one was okay. She read my head one time. Phrenology, I can't remember the name of it. Is that what it's called, is it? And she said, Donna's really going to do something special for God. That was what she got. Now, what do we do with that, or the palm reading, I don't know. But even way back then, it was like, okay, God's got this. But boy, I didn't want to get close to God. But I so desperately loved him and wanted to be close to him. So desperately loved him and wanted to be close to him that I would take the next step. I go into Bev's office again and go, okay, Bev, here we go. Next step is, and we went through rejection, and we went through denial, we went through abandonment, we went through all kinds of feelings and people, and yeah. And then these visions would come. Can I share with the vision with? Okay. That there was this incredible, and you'll see a picture later on of him, donkey. His head was like this. His ears were like that. Big old guy, his name was Leroy. When we got him, he was coming from Oklahoma. He was an American mammoth donkey, and they're hard to find, let alone within the budget of a nonprofit. So we got him, and when he got off the trailer, he was 300 pounds underweight. His teeth hadn't been done, so he had holes in his mouth from his teeth. His hooves hadn't been done. He had sores on his body. He had been on the trailer much too long. As I called the police and said, you either get these people here, I'm going to call the police because you're going to get this animal to me. And we don't know what the journey was, and shippers, but they're not always really good. Well, we had the board of directors there, and there was an elderly person there, also part of that. And she kept saying, I don't know what we're doing with a donkey. We have a donkey. We don't need another donkey. And I said, we're supposed to have this donkey. I don't know about another donkey. And she's a horse person. And I didn't know there, and she was not feeling well, and she was depressed. Leroy literally got off the trailer, walked into the barn, went straight to her, put his head into her, loved her. Within a matter of minutes, she felt better. Talk about a God animal, huh? Well, that was Leroy. And then Leroy passed away, at least a year ago. Whenever it was. And he started showing up in my vision, because after you work with Bev in the prayer, God gives you these amazing visions. Well, here comes Leroy. Every vision. And God was saying, first I needed God to say, I've got him. And he's okay. I not only have him, but he's still loving you. And so there was God again saying, I love you and I know what you need. He knew I needed to know that Leroy was okay. I didn't even know that. But once he came, it was like, oh, I did need to know that. So then my steps with God get better. They get stronger. And it's a hard one. It's a hard one. But it's a process that's so powerful that we go through. He knows what we need. He knows how to help us heal, period. He knows what my special journey is in healing. And because of what I do, I've had to go through all the steps of the healing and then some, all the different layers. There are times I go through it because I needed to know exactly what I could do to help other people. And he was going to teach me that through my experience. That's how we get it, isn't it? That's how we get it. So it's amazing what God can do. God, each one of you, whatever it is that you're struggling with or need, and He loves you. He loves you. Thoughts? Questions? It's powerful stuff. Where are you? Where are you? Doing a lot of talking about a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Spiritual care consultant. Having gone through spiritual care consultants myself, and just listening to your vision and knowing my visions that the Lord gave me during sessions, and the way that He does that specifically for us, knowing exactly what we need. I just want to encourage anyone who hasn't experienced that to ask the Lord, because it's like washing. It's so incredible to experience that personally with Him, and He will. You taught me that.
He will, yes. And we learn that we can trust Him. And trust for transcenders, trust for abused people is huge. It does not happen overnight. It takes sometimes a year for a person coming into my office. For Marie, when I first started meeting her, it took her a year to get comfortable enough to talk about what really happened to her, because she had to build trust with me. Who are you? God told me to come and work with you, but I don't trust you. And she shouldn't. She just met me. Yeah.
Oh, in the Word it says that as we behold Him, we're changed. And the encouragement that I can give is that we need to take time to sit before Him, even if we're not saying anything, to behold His beauty, like you were saying in worship, to behold Him, and we are changed in that place. And that is the place, too, where He can put His finger on the next thing we need to deal with.
Yes.
Like David said, show me, God, any wicked way within me. I'm not saying the wicked way, but I mean the next step in healing can be, He can just show you the next step that He wants to take you down that path next. It is just an ongoing thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And we all have strongholds, every one of us, but just in this loud world, and the world is getting louder, to sequester yourself away with Him. Even if it's 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, behold His beauty, and we're changed in that place. We don't come out of there the same. We're just a smidgen different, or even two smidgens different when we come out of there. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sis, for that. God is love. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all this, and I'm just thinking of God's word, which is alive. It, spirit breathed. And God loves us so much. And sometimes we have a hard time grasping the depth, the width, the breadth, and the length of it. Because in our human, carnal minds, we limit God to what our concept of love is. But He uses everything. Nothing is ever wasted with God. He will use your pain in such a tremendous way. And this morning, when I was preparing for today, actually, I've been preparing all week, just spending time in His presence. And I realized, because I've been through some really difficult times in my life and seasons in my life, and you were part of one of those seasons. We both were part of it. It was very interesting. But when I realized that season afforded me an opportunity to get even closer with Him, it's all good. It's all good because He uses it. He works all things together for our good. He's such a good God. So I guess to sum it all up, He is love, folks. There's no way around it. He is love.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're okay.
Yeah, if you wanted some time with Marian, I know she'll find time for each person that wants to work with her. It's amazing. Yeah, and she'll be here at the healing service at 3 o'clock. And hopefully God leads you to share singing. Yes. Yeah. So think about your journey. What's blocked you from taking the next step? Mine was fear. Mine was, I'm not perfect. Yeah. What do you mean get close to God? I don't know about that. What do you mean trust Him? Look what He's done with me so far. Why would I trust somebody that let all that happen? Then taking the fact that maybe you've got some feelings in there. Some feelings that are so powerful that they're blocking you. I'm so frightened of my feelings. I don't want to go there. I can't go there. And if you're working with people that are abused, or you've been abused, know that layer, actually will look like layers. Sometimes people describe them as cement blocks. And then we learn to put boundaries in. Let's talk about what a boundary is, okay? A boundary, this is my farm part coming up, is if I'm growing a garden, and we are gardens, guys, talents and abilities and gorgeous stuff and purposes and, it's beautiful stuff that we have inside of us. We have to put a fence around that, right? We need a fence. And again, I'm in the garden, I'm in the farm area, and you don't have a fence, you're not going to have a garden. Yeah. In fact, I had a steer one time that, here's a story. Betsy and I, city people, coming from Detroit area, doing a farm program, decided we're going to get a steer. It's a cow. Yeah, right. I looked back and said it was crazy. But we got a steer. He was as big as, when he first came, as big as our St. Bernard, and he was wonderful. He taught us a lot. But if he was out, he ate anything and everything. So we had to have a fence. Now that fence represents people. We have to have a gate that I decide who comes in and who doesn't. If someone's going to come in and stomp on me, stomp on my garden, I'm not going to let them in. I need to slam that door and lock that gate, maybe put a roof over it. It's like, no way, because I have to have boundaries. What happens when we're abused, that boundary gets really strong, or should get. The other thing you'll see is when boundaries, there aren't any boundaries. Because every time they try to put up a boundary, they've been smashed down. So they learn not to put boundaries up. But we have to learn to put them up if they're not there. But the Dexter was our steer. He taught me a lot about boundaries too. The farmer said, that's no problem. You're city people. We'll teach you how to take care of them. We'll set up an electric fence. Okay, put up the electric fence. And the donkey and the steer can stay in the corral area. Well, that was fine until our donkey herded the steer through the electric fence. Well, if you know steer, their hides are, that electric fence didn't faze him. Once he realized it, he went through, I was like, no problem. So he was out. So we put up a higher fence. Well, that should have kept it. Well, then it was fine until he got too big and he could see over it. Once he could see over it, he smashed the fence down. It's like, okay, now we'll put up a higher fence. Here comes the boundaries again, higher fence. Well, that was fine, but he learned how to smash that down too. And finally, one of our board of directors said, let's put up a cattle fence. They're pretty strong. It'll probably keep him in. Probably was the word, because he was starting to lean on it. Well, then he had him 5-6 years, and he turned mean, and he had to be what they call shipped. He went to the meat market. And he was a delightful guy, but he taught me a lot about fences. So depending on who you are with will depend what your fence is. I have a brother who's addicted to, I think, almost everything. Stole money from my parents, like right and left, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if he's around, I could be cordial to him, but my cement slabs would probably be up. The cement slab over there, and he's not getting close to my heart or who I am. So if you think about it, who do you let close? Who do you let in? Who do you not let in? Like Betsy, the soul sister that helped create the farm program, we didn't even worry about it. But boy, if my brother was there, it was totally different. So the boundaries need to go in. to protect us. And when there's trauma, the boundaries may get so thick that God's excluded too. Nope. What do you mean, let him in? I'm not going to let him in. It's back to that God stuff. Or maybe he's the one that you do let in. What do you think? Think of people that you want close, people you don't want close. It's your decision. It's our decision because we are individuals that have the right to say, yes, I'm letting you close. No, I'm not letting you close. That's my decision. That's my protection. It's me taking care of me. Anybody else struggle with boundaries sometimes? You want to talk about it? It's coming. All right.
I don't want to talk very much about it. The truth is that I never learned that I could have boundaries. I'm one of those people that says yes way too often, takes on too much, finds myself overwhelmed, overloaded. I went for counseling, and the first thing he said, why do you have six children? He thought that perhaps I didn't have boundaries, and I said, well, I love children. That was not one of those issues. But I had not learned how to structure my life so that I could say, this is enough and no more. And I felt like I was disappointing people. I had to be perfect. And if I was perfect, I would do everything that people asked me to do. And that's, I think, comes back to, I had 2 alcoholic parents. And my father would say to me when he was inebriated, do this like a good girl. And he always said, like a good girl. Wow. So that was impressed on me, that if I did that, I was a good girl. Yeah. So that's where the boundaries got out of whack. And to this day, I still have an issue with saying no to things. And especially if I like it and I want to do it, it's difficult because I want to be a good girl.
Wow. Yeah, that good girl. Yeah. How many grew up with it? Be a good girl, be a good boy. Yeah. And we had to figure out what that is. And now we're saying, I like what you did. Yeah, I like you and love you, but you have to be a good, whatever that means. Yeah. Other thoughts? Yeah.
As you were talking about boundaries and letting people in, not letting other people in, I think it's important to talk about forgiveness and unforgiveness, because you're not talking about unforgiveness. You're talking about forgiving them, but that doesn't mean that you can allow them into your gated area.
Right. Yes, I think it's a very good, very good point. Yeah, I have forgiven my brother for whatever he's done. I pray for him. I ask God to bless him, and that hopefully there's enough brain left that he continue to keep going and doing whatever he needs to do. Absolutely. That doesn't mean I have to spend time with him. It doesn't mean I allow him close in my life. Yeah, I wish I could. I wish I could. That's a loss. Some of those losses. Yeah, good point.
She said, and it doesn't mean that what he did is okay.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
They feel if they, sorry. No, you're okay. Most people feel if they forgive, how could they forgive? That makes it right what they did. Oh. And it never makes it right. It's just that you take it off your hook and give it to God and let him deal with it.
Right.
But when so anyway.
Yes, good point.
Thank you.
Yes, so we can talk about what forgiveness is and isn't. Forgiveness isn't saying what you did is okay. Yes, and I come alongside with you or spend some time with you. No, it was always not okay. Always not okay. And what they did is wrong, and it will always be wrong. And it's up for them to deal with God. I don't have to have the consequences. They are going to get consequences for it. I may not see them, and I don't have to. God will take care of that. It also doesn't mean that I'm going to allow them close in my life. I can care for you, I can celebrate you, and I can encourage you on your way, but I don't have to spend a whole lot of life, or a whole lot of time with you. Good point. Yeah. And forgiveness is so important, and we do get tangled in that. Or I'm never going to forgive him, because if I forgive him, that means that I'm not angry and I can't keep getting him. Well, who's suffering? Who's doing the suffering in that? I'm doing the suffering. I'm hanging on the anger. Remember, I talked about anger earlier. Heart attack, strokes, colitis, arthritis, high blood pressure, ulcers. Exciting, huh? I don't want my body to do that. Yeah. Yeah, God's got the consequences. Very good point. It may not be in this lifetime. Yep, I may not see it. But I don't have to. I mean, that releases me. And sometimes it's like vengeance gets in there. Oh, I want him to suffer. Oh, yes. And if we're honest.
And what does God say about vengeance?
I know, but if we're honest, have we had that feeling? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I want him to suffer. I want him to, oh, yeah.
And what does God also say about forgiveness? If we don't forgive, he won't forgive us.
Yeah.
There's so many pieces to that.
So many layers, yeah.
Right. We just have to let them go and trust God, which that's key, is trusting God that he's got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Okay, what I'd like to do at this point, in closing out this section, and before lunch, is take a piece of paper, and there's some plain paper in the middle, and we got more paper if you need it, and just write yourself a note of something that touched you today, and that what you want to do something about, maybe something you heard. Write yourself something about what you just gained for you.